"Turn around," Julian said, his voice flat. I obeyed, pivoting slowly in my heels. The silk of my dress wrestled against the silence of our bedroom. I stopped facing the mirror, my eyes locking with his reflection. He wasn't looking at my face. He was checking the hem of the dress, the placement of the pearls, the way my hair was pinned. Like he was inspecting a car before a show. "It's acceptable," he muttered, adjusting his cufflinks. "The red is a bit bold, but it will have to do." "I can change," I said quickly, my hand reaching for the zipper. "I have the beige one." "No time," he snapped, checking his watch. "The car is waiting. Just remember the rules, Elena." I lowered my hand. "I know, smile, don't drink too much. And?" He turned to me, his eyes cold and sharp. "And don't speak unless spoken to," I whispered. "And definitely don't talk about business." "Good," he said, walking past me without a touch, without a kiss. "You know you embarrass yourself when you try to sound smart. Just be pretty. That's what you're good at." He walked out the door. I stood there for a second, feeling a sting behind my eyes. Just be pretty. I swallowed the lump in my throat, grabbed my clutch, and followed him. The anniversary party was held in the grand ballroom of the city's finest hotel. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, and the room buzzed with the chatter of the city's elite. I stuck to Julian's side like a shadow. "Ah, Julian." A man in a gray suit approached us. It was Mr. Henderson, one of Julian's investors. "And this must be the lovely wife." "Hello," I said, forcing a smile. "It's nice to." "She's doing well," Julian interrupted, his hand tightening on my elbow, squeezing just hard enough to hurt. "Henderson, I wanted to talk to you about the Q3 projections." They turned their backs to me, forming a close circle. I was dismissed. I took a step back, fading into the wallpaper as I always did. "Champagne, Mrs. Blackwood?" I turned to see Sarah, Julian's personal assistant. She was holding a tray, but her eyes weren't on me. They were darting toward Julian's back. She wore a black dress that was far too tight for a professional setting. "No, thank you, Sarah," I said softly. "You look tired," Sarah said, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Is the domestic life exhausting?" "I'm fine," I said, straightening my posture. "Is Julian happy with the arrangements tonight?" "Oh, he's thrilled," she said, her voice dropping to a purr. "He and I spent all week planning the details. He relies on me for everything really important." She stepped past me, walking right up to Julian. I watched as she placed a hand on his arm. It was too familiar. A professional assistant doesn't touch her boss like that. Julian didn't pull away. He leaned down, whispering something into her ear. They both laughed. It was a shared laugh, an intimate laugh, a laugh he never shared with me. My chest felt tight, like the air in the room had vanished. I felt the eyes of the other guests on me. Do they know? I wondered. Does everyone know but me? "Excuse me," I mumbled to no one in particular. I navigated through the crowd, my vision blurring. I pushed into the ladies' room and locked myself in the farthest stall. I sat on the closed lid, breathing deeply. "Stop it, Elena," I whispered to myself, wiping a tear before it could ruin my makeup. "He's just stressed. He works hard." "You're imagining things." I sat there for 10 minutes, rebuilding my mask. I checked my reflection in the compact mirror. Perfect. Dull, obedient. I unlocked the stall and walked toward the sinks. But before I could turn the faucet on, the main door opened. 2 people walked into the small lounge area just outside the bathroom proper. I froze. I knew those voices. "You have to be more careful, Julian," Sarah's voice hissed. "You were practically undressing me with your eyes out there." "Relax," Julian's voice was smooth, arrogant. Nobody noticed. "Your wife was standing right there," Sarah said. I held my breath, my hand hovering over the faucet. "Elena?" Julian let out a short, cruel laugh. "Babe, don't worry about her. Elena is too stupid to notice anything. She thinks I'm the perfect husband. She's going to notice eventually," Sarah said. "When are you going to end it?" "You promised me." I know, Julian sighed. "I just need to close the deal with Vance first. Once that contract is signed and the bonus hits the offshore account, I'm filing the papers. I'm not leaving that house empty-handed." "And her?" Sarah asked. "She gets nothing," Julian said. "I had her sign a prenup she didn't even read. I told her it was insurance paperwork. She trusted me. You're bad," Sarah giggled. I'm a businessman, he said. Come on, let's go back before she comes out of the bathroom and starts crying about her headache. The door opened and closed. I stood in the silence of the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. The tear tracks were gone. The sadness was gone. Stupid, I whispered to my reflection. He thinks I'm stupid. I straightened my pearl necklace. I fixed my red lipstick. My heart wasn't breaking anymore. It was hardening. Okay, Julian, I said to the empty room. Let's do business. The mattress dipped under his weight, and the scent of expensive scotch and cheap vanilla perfume washed over me. I kept my breathing steady, my eyes shut tight. Useless, Julian muttered under his breath, tossing his phone onto the nightstand. Absolutely useless. My fingers curled into fists under the duvet. Useless? I thought, the anger burning in my chest. I graduated summa cum laude in finance. I managed portfolios worth millions before I met you. I let you convince me to stop. I let you make me small. I didn't sleep. I just listened to him snore, plotting. The next morning was a blur of calculated movements. Julian stood by the door, checking his reflection in the hallway mirror. I'll be in Geneva for 3 days, he said, not bothering to look at me. Don't call unless the house is burning down. And make sure the cleaners do the study. It's dusty. Of course, Julian, I said, handing him his espresso. Safe travels. Right, he grunted. He took a sip, grimaced, and set the cup down. Too bitter. Learn to use the machine properly, Elena. The door clicked shut. The lock engaged. I waited 5 seconds, then 10. Then I poured the espresso down the sink and ran to the study. The room was cold, lined with mahogany bookshelves that were mostly for show. I went straight to the painting of his grandfather behind the desk. I gripped the frame and pulled. It swung open on hidden hinges, revealing a steel safe embedded in the wall. Okay, I whispered. Step 1. I pulled my phone out and dialed a number I hadn't called in 4 years. It rang once, twice. Hello? A weary voice answered. Sophie, I said, my voice trembling slightly. It's Elena. Silence stretched on the line. Then, Elena? I thought you dropped off the face of the earth. Or joined a cult. Close, I said dryly. I married Julian Blackwood. Same thing, she quipped, though her tone softened. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm done being the trophy wife, Sophie, but I need help. I'm staring at a safe and I need to get inside. You want me to help you rob your husband? Sophie asked. I could practically hear her grinning. Video call me. I switched to FaceTime, aiming the camera at the digital keypad. Nice, Sophie said through the speaker. Kensington Model X biometric override, but it has a keypad backup. You don't have his fingerprint, obviously. Obviously, I said. Can you hack it? Not remotely, not without a direct line, she said. But men like Julian are predictable. Look at the keypad. Are any buttons worn down? I squinted at the rubber keys. No, it looks brand new. Okay, let's profile him, Sophie said. Narcissist, egomaniac. Does he care about you? No, so it's not your anniversary. Does he care about his parents? He hates them. Does he care about himself? More than anything, I replied. Try his birthday, Sophie said. Day and month. My fingers hovered over the keys. That's too simple. He thinks he's a genius. Exactly, Sophie countered. He thinks he's so smart that no one would dare try the obvious. Just try it. I typed in 1031, beep. A small green light flashed. The locking mechanism clicked. I can't believe it, I whispered. He really is that arrogant. Jackpot, Sophie cheered. Open it? I pulled the heavy door open. Stacks of cash sat on the bottom shelf, thousands of dollars banded together. But I ignored the money. My eyes went to the black leather-bound ledgers on the top shelf. What's inside? Sophie asked. Jewelry, deeds? I pulled the top ledger out and flipped it open. It wasn't standard accounting. I knew balance sheets. I knew tax evasions. This was different. It's data, I said, scanning the pages. Sophie, these are lists of people. Not clients, victims. Read me a line, she commanded. Name, Arthur Vane. Status, compromised. Asset, medical history, stage 4 leukemia diagnosis. Buyer, insurance adjusters. I flipped the page. Name, Sarah Jenkins. Status, acquired. Asset, Private emails regarding affair. Buyer pending. My stomach turned. I looked at the header on the page, the shadow network. He's not consulting, I said, my voice shaking. He's stealing private lives. He's selling secrets to the highest bidder to ruin people. That's highly illegal, Elena. That's federal prison time, Sophie said, her voice dropping. Take pictures. Take pictures of everything. I see a name here, I said, freezing on a page near the back. Dante Rossi, status, destroyed. The tech mogul? Sophie asked. He lost everything 3 years ago. Julian did it, I said, tracing the entry. Julian sold his corporate secrets to his rival. He destroyed a man's life for a commission fee. I looked at the camera. Sophie, he's a criminal. So, Sophie said, what are you going to do? I closed the book and looked at the safe, the cash, the power, the secrets. I'm not going to report him, I said, a cold calm settling over me. Not yet. Elena? I'm going to take it, I said. I'm going to take his business, his money, and his pride. And I'm going to use his own secrets to do it. The hallway smelled like stale coffee and damp drywall. I checked the address on my phone one last time before looking up at the peeling gold letters on the frosted glass door. Rossi Tech Repair. It was a far cry from the gleaming skyscrapers where Dante Rossi used to operate. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my trench coat, and knocked. We're closed, a rough voice shouted from inside. Read the sign. I turned the knob. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was small, cluttered with computer parts, tangled wires, and stacks of unpaid bills. Behind a desk buried in hard drives sat a man. He hadn't shaved in days, and his shirt was wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp. He looked up, squinting against the light from the hallway. When he recognized me, he didn't stand up. He leaned back in his chair and let out a dry, mocking laugh. Well, look at this, he said, gesturing around the messy room. Julian's trophy wife. Are you lost, princess? The shopping district is 5 miles east. I'm not lost, I said, my voice steady despite the rapid beating of my heart. I closed the door behind me. Then you must be desperate, Dante said, picking up a screwdriver and toying with it. Did your husband send you? Is he running out of people to humiliate, so he sent you to gloat? Julian doesn't know I'm here, I replied, stepping closer to the desk. He thinks I'm at a spa. Fascinating, Dante muttered, turning his attention back to his circuit board. I'm busy fixing a toaster for Mrs. Gable down the hall. Unless you have a broken hairdryer, get out. I don't have a broken hairdryer, I said. I have the reason you lost your company. Dante's hand froze. He slowly looked up, his eyes narrowing. What did you say? I reached into my bag and pulled out a single folded sheet of paper, a photocopy of the page from Julian's ledger. I slammed it onto the desk, right on top of his tools. Read it, I commanded. Dante looked at me, then at the paper. He picked it up cautiously, as if it were a bomb. I watched his eyes scan the lines. Project Icarus, he read aloud, his voice dropping to a whisper. Source code leak insider trading fabricated evidence. He looked up, his face pale. This is the internal log of the hack that destroyed my servers. It wasn't a glitch, Dante, I said. It was Julian. He sold your proprietary algorithms to your competitors and planted the evidence to make it look like you embezzled the funds. Dante stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. He gripped the paper, his knuckles white. Where did you get this? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Julian keeps a safe behind a painting in his study, I explained quickly. He thinks I'm too stupid to find it. He thinks I'm just a doll who smiles and pours tea. Why show me? Dante asked, stepping around the desk to face me. He was taller than I remembered and angry. Why betray him? You're living in a mansion paid for by this money. Because I'm next, I said, meeting his gaze. He's planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing once he closes his next big deal. He treats me like furniture. I'm tired of being furniture. Dante studied my face, searching for a lie. He looked at my expensive coat, my manicured nails, and then back into my eyes. He saw the fire there. You want revenge, he stated. I want justice, I corrected. And money. A lot of it. He let out a breath, running a hand through his messy hair. A spark of the old genius, the tycoon he used to be, flickered in his eyes. This page proves he committed corporate espionage, Dante said, tapping the paper. But it's just a copy. We need the originals. We need digital footprints. I can get you access, I said. I know his schedule. I know his passwords. But I don't know the tech. I can't move the money without triggering alarms. That's why I need you. You need a hacker, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a hungry one. I need a partner, I said. I'm offering you a deal. You help me drain his accounts and expose his network. You get your reputation back. You get to watch him burn. And you? Dante asked. I get the cash, I said. And I get my freedom. Dante looked at the paper again, then tossed it onto the desk. He wiped his hand on his jeans and extended it toward me. You're crazier than you look, Elena, he said. I took his hand. His grip was rough, calloused, and strong. I'll take that as a compliment, I replied. So, Dante said, the gear's already turning in his head. When do we start? Right now, I said. First, you need to shave. We have a lot of work to do. Welcome home, darling, I said, placing a gentle kiss on Julian's cheek. He smelled of airplane cabin air and that expensive cologne he used to mask his scent. He didn't kiss me back. He just handed me his briefcase. Put this in the study, he commanded, and get ready. Mother expects us for lunch at 1. Don't make us late. I'm already dressed, I said softly, smoothing my skirt. He glanced at me, his lip curling slightly. Wear the blue one. Mother hates that color. Okay, I whispered. I'll change. I went upstairs, my hand shaking as I unzipped my dress. I wasn't shaking from fear anymore. I was shaking from the effort of holding back my rage. Play the part, Elena, I told myself. Be the doll. 30 minutes later, we sat in the stiff, cold dining room of Eleanor Blackwood's estate. The room felt like a museum where nothing was allowed to be touched. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, cutting her steak with surgical precision. Elena, she said without looking up, you look tired. Are the dark circles a new fashion statement? I lowered my fork, forcing a polite smile. I haven't been sleeping well, Eleanor. Is that so? She looked at Julian. Are you failing to keep my son happy? A wife's primary duty is to maintain a pleasant atmosphere. You look like a funeral attendee. I felt Julian's hand cover mine on the table. He squeezed. It wasn't a comfort, it was a warning. His fingernails dug into my skin. She tries, Mother. Julian laughed, taking a sip of his wine. But you know, Elena, she's simple. She worries about the grocery list and the gardener. I suppose intellect skips a generation in some families, Eleanor said, finally looking at me with eyes like ice. Pass the salt. Here you go, I said, my voice steady. Inside, I was screaming. So, Eleanor said, dismissing me completely to turn to Julian. How is the Vance deal progressing? You said the timeline was tight. It's moving, Julian said, relaxing in his chair. Vance is nervous, but he's greedy. That's the important part. And the structure? Eleanor asked. Is it secure? I stood up to pour them more tea. I moved silently, making myself invisible. Ironclad? Julian said, not even lowering his voice. We're rooting the initial buy-in through the Cayman accounts next month. Once the merger is announced publicly in 2 months, the stock jumps, we dump the shares, and the money is already cleaned. Risky, Eleanor noted, taking a sip from the cup I filled. If the SEC looks too closely, they won't, Julian scoffed. The accounts are under a shell company. Apex Logistics. It doesn't exist on paper in this country. Vance signs, we get the injection of capital, and the company folds before anyone realizes the inventory was fake. Brilliant, Eleanor murmured. And the profit? 40 million, Julian grinned. Tax-free. I poured Julian's tea, my hand perfectly steady. Sugar, Julian? I asked. He waved me away without looking. No, sit down. I sat. I took a small bite of a potato. My mind was racing, cataloging every word. Apex Logistics, Cayman Islands, fake inventory. 40 million. They spoke so openly. They discussed felony fraud right in front of me because they truly believed I didn't understand what shell company or liquidity event meant. They thought I was just hearing noise, but I understood everything. Julian wasn't just a bad husband. He was orchestrating a massive pump-and-dump scheme. If I went to the police now, they would arrest him. He would go to prison. I looked at Julian, wiping grease from his mouth with a linen napkin. I looked at Eleanor, smiling at her son's corruption. Prison is too good for you, I thought. If he went to prison, he might still hide the money. He might still have power. No, I didn't just want him behind bars. I wanted the $40 million. Is the food to your liking, Elena? Eleanor asked sharply, catching me staring. I blinked, widening my eyes innocently. Oh, yes, I said. It's delicious. I was just daydreaming. Figures, Julian muttered. I smiled at my plate. Keep talking, I thought. Tell me everything. It's impossible, Elena. Sophie's voice crackled over the secure line. The firewall is military grade. Unless I can plug directly into the physical server, unless I can plug directly into the physical server, I can't extract the bank codes. There has to be a way, I whispered, pacing the length of my walk-in closet. There is, she replied. You need a physical keycard, a master override. Who has access besides Julian? Only the head of security, I said, stopping in front of the window. Marcus. Then you need Marcus, Sophie said. Turn him? I looked out the window down to the driveway. Julian was standing there, his face red, screaming at a man in a black suit. It was Marcus. I have to go, I told Sophie. I think I see an opening. I watched through the glass. Julian was pointing furiously at the door of his Aston Martin. You incompetent moron. Julian's voice carried all the way up to the second floor. Look at this scratch. Do you know what this paint costs? Sir, it was debris on the highway, Marcus replied, his head bowed low. I couldn't avoid it. You couldn't avoid it because you're slow. Julian shouted, throwing his car keys at Marcus's chest. If it's not fixed by tomorrow, don't bother coming in. And don't think you're getting that bonus. Julian stormed back into the house, slamming the front door so hard the windows rattled. I waited a moment, watching Marcus standing alone in the driveway. He looked defeated. He picked up the keys, wiped his face, and leaned against the car, putting his head in his hands. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a cold bottle of water, and walked outside. The afternoon air was stifling. Marcus straightened up immediately when he heard my footsteps, buttoning his jacket. Mrs. Blackwood, he said, forcing a professional tone. I apologize for the noise. I held out the water bottle. He doesn't appreciate loyalty, does he? Marcus hesitated, then took the water. He pays the bills, ma'am, does he? I asked, leaning against the stone pillar of the porch. I heard him mention your bonus. Did he cut it again? Marcus cracked the seal on the bottle, his jaw tight. Third time this year. Why do you stay, Marcus? I asked softly. You're ex-military. You could work anywhere. He took a long drink, then sighed. The professional mask slipped just a fraction. I need the health insurance. It's my daughter, Lily. Is she sick? She has a heart defect, he said, his voice cracking. She needs a valve replacement. The insurance covers 80%, but the specialist requires a deposit up front. I asked Mr. Blackwood for a loan against my salary last week. What did he say? Marcus looked at the ground, shame coloring his cheeks. He laughed. He said if I couldn't manage my finances, I shouldn't have had kids. He told me to go to a charity ward. My blood boiled. It was exactly something Julian would say. I reached up and unclasped my diamond earrings. They were 2 carats each, flawless, a gift Julian had given me to show off to his partners. Marcus, I said. He looked up. Ma'am? I took his hand and pressed the earrings into his palm. Take these. He looked down, his eyes widening in shock. Mrs. Blackwood, I can't. These are worth 20,000 easily, I interrupted. Sell them. Pay for the surgery. Get Lily the best doctor. He tried to hand them back. I can't take your jewelry. Mr. Blackwood would kill me. He won't know, I said, closing his fingers over the gems. And it's not a gift, it's a trade. Marcus froze. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. He saw that I wasn't just the quiet wife anymore. What do you need? He asked, his voice low. The server room, I said. Tonight. I need the master key card for 1 hour. That's a severe breach of protocol, he stammered. If he finds out, I'm done. He's going to fire you anyway, Marcus, I said ruthlessly. He hates you. Take the money. Save your daughter. And help me burn him to the ground. Marcus looked at the diamonds in his hand, glittering in the sunlight. He thought of his daughter. I could see the decision forming in his eyes. Tonight, he whispered. 2 a.m., I'll disable the hallway cameras for 10 minutes. The card will be under the doormat of the server room. Thank you, Marcus, I said. Don't thank me, he said, pocketing the diamonds. Just make sure he hurts. Oh, he will, I promised. He will. Mr. Vance didn't look at me when I placed the plate of rare roast beef in front of him. He just stared at Julian, his eyes flat and dead like a shark's. The wine, Elena, Julian commanded, snapping his fingers. Don't just stand there. Yes, Julian, I murmured, pouring the Cabernet with a steady hand. So, Vance said, his voice grating like gravel. The logistics are set? Completely, Julian said, leaning back in his chair with that ardent smirk I had learned to hate. The transfer protocols are ready. The encryption is military grade. Vance cut into his meat, blood pooling on the porcelain. And the security? This data is sensitive, Blackwood. If it leaks, people die. And if people die, I lose money. Relax, Vance, Julian laughed, swirling his wine. My system is ironclad. No one gets in, no one gets out without my say-so. And her? Vance jerked his chin toward me without making eye contact. Loose ends tend to unravel. Julian glanced at me with open disdain. Elena, she's not a loose end. She's part of the furniture. She doesn't understand a word we're saying. Good, Vance grunted. Elena, clear the appetizers, Julian ordered, and bring the coffee. We have work to discuss. Right away, I said softly. I carried the plates into the kitchen, my heart pounding against my ribs. As soon as the swinging door closed, I set the dishes down silently in the sink. I moved to the counter where a large vase of lilies stood. Hidden deep inside the foliage was a baby monitor. I pulled the receiver from my apron pocket and held it to my ear. Midnight tonight, Vance's voice crackled through the speaker. I want the assets moved to the holding account by 12:05 a.m., no delays. You'll have confirmation by 12:10, Julian replied. I need the authenticator code from my phone to authorize it. And then we're rich. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Dante. Asset movement confirmed. Midnight. I need the code. The reply came instantly. Get the phone. We are ready. I took a deep breath. This was it. I prepared the tray silver coffee pot, sugar, cream, and 3 cups. I reached into my pocket and felt the weight of the dummy phone Sophie had 3D printed. It was identical to Julian's in weight and feel. I walked back into the dining room. The air was thick with tension. Julian's phone was sitting on the table next to his wine glass, just as I hoped. Coffee, gentlemen, I announced. Just pour it, Vance snapped. We're busy. I moved to Vance's side. I held the pot over his cup. I waited for Julian to look at his papers. Julian, this clause here, Vance started, pointing at a document. Let me see, Julian said, leaning forward. No. I tilted the pot. Instead of aiming for the cup, I let the stream of scalding hot coffee hit the edge of the saucer and splash violently onto Vance's lap and expensive suit jacket. You stupid bitch! Vance roared, jumping up and knocking his chair over. It's boiling. Oh my God, I cried, feigning panic. I'm so sorry I tripped. Elena. Julian screamed, leaping to his feet. Look what you did, you clumsy idiot. Get this off me. Vance yelled, frantically wiping at his pants. Towels, get towels. Julian shouted at me, turning his back to the table to help Vance. This was the window. I grabbed a napkin from the table, and in the same motion, my hand swept over Julian's phone. I palmed it, sliding the dummy phone into its place in a seamless blur. I'm getting them. I shrieked, backing away. I shoved Julian's real phone into my apron pocket. Get out of here. Julian yelled, his face purple with rage. Go to the kitchen and stay there. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I sobbed, backing through the swinging door. As soon as I was in the kitchen, the tears stopped. I locked the door. I pulled out Julian's phone. It buzzed in my hand. I texted Dante one word, got it. From the dining room, I heard Julian yelling. It's fine, Vance, I'll buy you a new suit. She's just a clumsy fool. I looked at the phone in my hand and smiled. Yes, Julian, I whispered. I'm just a fool. The screen of the burner phone glowed in the dark of my closet. I typed the message slowly, savoring every letter. He's going to dump you like he's dumping his wife. I pressed send. Who is this? The reply came back instantly. Sarah, she was awake. She was watching. I typed again. He's hiding the money from you, Sarah. Ask him about the secondary account in Zurich. I didn't answer her next 5 frantic texts. I just turned the phone off and hid it in my shoebox. I wasn't stealing the money yet. I was planting a bomb, and Sarah was going to be the detonator. That evening, the front door slammed so hard the pictures on the hallway wall went crooked. "Julian?" I called out softly, stepping into the foyer. He walked past me, his face a mask of fury. He threw his briefcase onto the sofa and went straight for the liquor cabinet. "Don't start with me, Elena," he warned, pouring a glass of scotch with a shaking hand. "I have a headache that could kill an elephant." "Is it work?" I asked, walking over to him. I kept my voice low, soothing. The voice of a dutiful wife. "It's Sarah," he spat, downing the drink in one gulp. "She's lost her mind." "Sarah?" I frowned, feigning confusion. "But she's so capable." "You always say she's your right hand." "She's my headache," he growled, slamming the glass down. "She stormed into my office today in the middle of a briefing. She started demanding access to the ledger files. She said she wanted assurances that her cut was secured." "That doesn't sound like her," I said, moving behind him. "Why would she do that?" "She's paranoid," Julian muttered. "She kept asking if I was moving assets without her. She was acting like a jealous girlfriend, not a professional." "Maybe she's stressed," I suggested gently. "Or maybe what?" He snapped, turning his head slightly. "Sit down, Julian," I said, guiding him to the armchair. "Let me rub your shoulders." "You're so tense." He hesitated, then sank into the chair. "I'm tense. I'm carrying this whole company on my back." I dug my thumbs into the knots in his shoulders. He groaned, relaxing slightly. "Maybe she's just not stable enough for you," I whispered near his ear. "A man like you with a business as complex, you need someone who keeps their head down, someone loyal." "Sarah seems so emotional lately." "She was crying," he admitted, his eyes closing. "She was crying about trust. It was embarrassing." "See?" I said, pressing harder on a pressure point. "You can't afford embarrassment, Julian, not with advanced deals so close. If she cracks under pressure now, what will she do when the real money comes in?" He was silent for a long moment. I could feel the doubt taking root in his mind. I watered it with my words. "Maybe she's not the right assistant for you anymore," I murmured. "Maybe she's becoming a liability." Julian opened his eyes. He looked at the empty fireplace, thinking, "A liability," he repeated slowly. "She threatened to go to HR if I didn't show her the accounts." "Har?" I gasped softly. "But that would ruin everything." "Exactly," he said, his voice turning cold. "She's dangerous." "You work so hard, honey," I said, moving my hands to his neck. "You deserve someone who supports you, not someone who questions you." He reached up and patted my hand. It was the first time he had touched me with anything other than contempt in years. "You're right, Elena," he said, sighing. "You're actually right. I think I need to cut her loose before she sinks the ship." "You know best, Julian," I smiled at the back of his head. "You always do." He stood up, looking energized, his decision made. "I'm going to lock her out of the system tomorrow," he said. "I'll change the admin passwords first thing in the morning." "Good idea," I said. "I'm going to take a shower," he announced, walking toward the stairs. "Make me something to eat." "Of course," I replied. As he walked away, I pulled my phone from my pocket. I texted Dante. He's locking her out tomorrow. She's going to snap. I went to the kitchen to make him a sandwich. I hummed a little tune. The king was turning on his castle, and I was the one holding the torch. Who the hell is ringing the bell at this hour? Julian barked from the living room, not bothering to look up from his tablet. "Elena, get that. I'm going," I called back, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I opened the heavy oak door. Standing on the porch was a man in a cheap, rumpled raincoat, looking soaked and tired, but his eyes were too sharp. They scanned me instantly, analyzing everything from my pearl earrings to my nervous hands. "Mrs. Blackwood?" he asked. "Yes," I said, keeping the door partially closed. "Can I help you?" "Detective Miller." "Economic crimes unit?" He flashed a silver badge. "Is your husband home?" "I'm here," Julian's voice boomed behind me. He stepped in front of me, physically pushing me aside to block the detective's view. "What do you want?" "I didn't call the police. We have some questions about a subsidiary of yours," Miller said, his tone deceptively polite as he pulled a small notebook from his pocket. "Apex Logistics. We've noticed some irregularities in the shipping manifest." Julian laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound that echoed in the foyer. Irregularities? You mean clerical errors. My lawyers handle the paperwork. If you have questions about boxes, call them in the morning. These aren't clerical errors, Mr. Blackwood, Miller said, his voice hardening. He didn't blink. We have reports of empty containers moving through the port. Containers registered to you. That usually signals money laundering. I don't track every box, Julian sneered. I run a global empire. Now get off my property unless you have a warrant. Miller looked at Julian, holding his gaze for a long, tense moment. Then he shifted his eyes to me. For a second, I felt like he could see right through my act. He knew something was wrong in this house. He smelled the rot. I'll be back, Miller said softly. With a warrant, he turned and walked into the rain. Julian slammed the door shut and locked it. Idiot, Julian muttered, thinking he can scare me, but I saw his hand trembling as he reached for the deadbolt. He was scared, and I was terrified. If the police freeze the accounts, I thought, my heart hammering against my ribs, I get nothing. The money stays locked away, the government seizes it, and Julian goes to jail a martyr while I'm left destitute. I had to act. 2 hours later, I told Julian I was going to the pharmacy for migraine medication. Instead, I drove to the back of an all-night diner where Dante's van was parked. I climbed into the passenger seat. Dante was typing furiously on a laptop, the blue light illuminating his tired face. We have to move the timeline up, I said without a greeting. Dante stopped typing. He looked at me confused. What? No, we agreed on 2 weeks. The virus needs time to bypass the firewall without triggering an alert. We don't have 2 weeks, I said, gripping his arm. A detective came to the house tonight. Economic crimes. Damn it, Dante cursed, slamming the laptop shut. If they get a warrant, they'll freeze the assets within 48 hours. Exactly, I said. If they lock the accounts, I can't drain them. Julian goes to prison, sure, but he keeps his secret stash. And I'm left with nothing but a scandal. Elena, rushing the hack is suicide, Dante argued, shaking his head. If we trigger the transfer too fast, the bank's algorithm might flag it. We could get caught. We have to risk it, I insisted, my voice rising. I'm the one living with the enemy, Dante. I saw his face tonight. He's going to run. He's going to liquidate everything and disappear before the police get back. So when? Dante asked, rubbing his temples. The gala, I said firmly. Next week, Tuesday. That's 4 days away, Dante said, looking at me with disbelief. It's insane. It's the perfect cover, I said. He'll be distracted. The system traffic will be high because of the merger announcement. We strike then. Dante looked at me for a long silence. He saw the desperation in my eyes, but also the resolve. We're going for the kill, he whispered. Yes, I said. We take everything. Or we lose everything. He's watching the cameras like a hawk, Elena, Marcus whispered, staring straight ahead at the lobby elevator doors. If I go near the main server tower in his office, he'll fire me on the spot. I can't get close enough to plant it. I adjusted the handle of the paper bag in my hand. It smelled of roasted chicken and Rosemary Julian's favorite lunch. I know, I said quietly. You've done enough, Marcus. Stay here, I'll find a way. I rode the elevator up to the top floor, my heart beating a steady rhythm against my ribs. In my pocket, I felt the cold, hard edge of the device Sophie had given me. It looked like a standard white USB charging cable, but the head was modified to inject a rootkit the second it drew power from a data port. As I stepped into the executive hallway, I heard the shouting before I even saw the glass doors. You are incompetent. Julian's voice boomed, echoing off the marble floors. It's a simple spreadsheet, Chloe. Can you not read? I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, a tremulous female voice stammered. I thought the formula was... You thought? Julian screamed. I don't pay you to think. I pay you to type. Get out of my face before I throw this monitor at you. The glass door swung open and a young girl in a cheap gray suit stumbled out. She was clutching a file to her chest, her face red and wet with tears. She didn't even see me as she ran past, heading straight for the break room. I looked at Julian's closed office door. He was in a mood. Perfect. I turned and followed the girl. I found her slumped over the break room table, sobbing into her hands. She couldn't have been more than 22. Hey, I said softly, closing the door behind me. She jumped, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. Mascara ran down her cheeks. Mrs. Blackwood. She gasped, wiping her face frantically. I'm sorry, I was just leaving. Please don't tell him I was crying. I'm not going to tell him anything, I said, pulling a chair out and sitting next to her. I placed a hand on her shaking shoulder. He's a monster, Chloe, I know. He said I'm stupid. She choked out. I need this internship for my college credit. If I quit, I fail the semester. He enjoys making people feel small, I said, my voice filled with practiced empathy. He does it to me too. She looked at me surprised. You? Every day I lied, but you don't deserve this. You're bright. I can see that. I try to be, she sniffled. Listen to me, I said, leaning in closer. You don't need him. I have a friend, Dante Rossi. He's starting a new firm. He treats his employees like human beings, and he pays double what Julian pays. Chloe's eyes widened. Dante Rossi? The tech genius? The same, I smiled warmly. I can get you an interview. I can get you a job starting Monday. Really? She asked, a glimmer of hope breaking through the fear. You would do that for me? I would, I said. But I need a tiny favor. A petty one. Anything, she said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the white USB cable. Julian took my phone charger this morning because he was angry at me, I said, rolling my eyes. He's so childish. He won't let me plug anything into the wall outlets in his office. I need you to go back in there to apologize. I have to go back in? She looked terrified again. Just for a second, I assured her. Take this cable. Tell him you're sorry for the typo. While you're standing at his desk, just plug this into his computer tower and plug your phone into it. Tell him your battery is dead and you need to check your calendar. He won't get mad. He won't notice, I promised. He'll be too busy gloating that you came back to apologize. Just leave it plugged in for 2 minutes while he talks. That's all I need to prove a point to him. It was a lie, a dangerous lie. But I needed a pawn and she was desperate. Chloe looked at the cable, then at me. She saw a kind wife trying to deal with a difficult husband. She didn't see the predator. Okay, she whispered, taking the cable. I can do that. Good girl, I said. Go now, be brave. She stood up, took a deep breath, and walked out of the break room. I waited by the coffee machine, counting the seconds. 1 minute, I heard the office door open. 2 minutes. I heard Julian's muffled voice, arrogant and condescending. He wasn't yelling, she was apologizing. 3 minutes. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Sophie. Connection established. We are in. Chloe walked back into the break room a moment later, handing me the cable. She looked relieved. He didn't even look at it, she whispered. He just told me to fix the file. You did great, I said, taking the weapon back. I'll call Dante tonight. Thank you, Mrs. Blackwood. She smiled. No, I said, turning to leave. Thank you, Chloe. Straighten your back, Julian hissed, gripping my elbow hard enough to bruise. Vance is watching. I'm perfectly straight, Julian, I said, keeping my voice smooth. And you're hurting me. I'll hurt you if you embarrass me, he whispered, letting go and flashing a charming smile at a passing waiter. Fix your face. You look too serious. I'm just focused, I lied, smoothing the skirt of my deep red dress. Julian looked me up and down, his lip curling slightly. That dress, it's aggressive. I told you to wear the blue one. I felt like this one was more appropriate, I said, meeting his gaze. Red is the color of war. Or victory. It's the color of a desperate woman trying to get attention, he scoffed. Just stand there and look pretty while I make the announcement. Don't speak. I won't say a word, I promised. The lights dimmed and the spotlight swung to the stage. Julian adjusted his tuxedo jacket, transformed instantly from a bully into a charming CEO, and walked up the stairs to the podium. The applause was polite, expensive. I stayed in the front row, holding a glass of champagne. I looked across the room. Sophie was standing by the DJ booth, holding a tablet. She caught my eye. I reached up and touched my pearl earring. Now, Sophie tapped the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian's voice boomed over the speakers, confident and rich. Thank you for joining us tonight. For 10 years, Blackwood Enterprises has been a leader in logistics. I took a sip of champagne. The bubbles tasted sharp. But tonight, Julian continued, gesturing to where Mr. Vance sat, we are taking the next step. I am proud to announce our exclusive partnership with Ping, a phone chimed loudly in the silence. Someone in the second row checked it. Our partnership with Vance Industries, Julian went on, ignoring the noise. Together we will buzz, buzz. Ding, 3 more phones lit up, then 10, then 50. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. People weren't looking at the stage anymore. They were looking at their screens. What is this? A woman behind me whispered loudly. Is this a joke? It's an email from the internal server, a man replied. Look at the attachment, client theft ledger. Julian faltered. He saw the tops of heads, not faces. If I could have your attention, please. Ding, ding, ding. The sound was like hail on a tin roof. Every phone in the room was receiving the blast. Julian. Mr. Vance stood up, his face turning a dark shade of purple. He was looking at his own phone. What is the meaning of this? Mr. Vance, I don't... Julian started, his smile wavering. It says here you skinned 15% off my last 3 shipments. Vance roared, his voice drowning out the microphone. It says you have a secondary set of books. That's impossible. Julian stammered. It's a glitch. Someone hack BZZZZT. Julian's own phone, sitting on the podium, vibrated violently against the wood. It wasn't an email. It was a bank alert. The one I had set up. He looked down. He froze. I watched his face. The arrogance vanished. The color drained out of his skin, leaving him looking gray and sick. He tapped the screen frantically. He swiped. He tapped again. No, he whispered. The microphone picked it up. No, 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 you thief. Vance shouted, throwing his napkin on the floor. I'm calling the SEC. The crowd erupted. Questions, accusations, laughter. Julian looked at the audience, his eyes wide and unseeing. He looked like a trapped animal. He abandoned the podium, stumbling down the side stairs and running toward the backstage exit. I finished my champagne, placed the glass on a passing tray, and followed him. I found him in the private dressing room. He was pacing in a tight circle, his tie undone, clutching his phone with both hands. It's a mistake, he was muttering to himself. It's a banking error. It has to be. I closed the door and locked it. Julian? I asked, keeping my voice calm. What happened out there? He stopped and looked at me. His eyes were wild. The account, he wheezed, holding the phone up. His hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped it. The Cayman account. The 40 million from Vance, the reserves, everything. What about it? I asked. It's gone, he whispered, his voice breaking. It's all gone. Balance 0. Maybe it's just a system error, I suggested, stepping closer. It's not an error. He screamed, throwing the phone against the mirror. The glass shattered. It's a transfer. Someone authorized a transfer 5 minutes ago. They emptied me, Elena. They took every single cent. He collapsed onto the small sofa, burying his face in his hands. I'm dead, he sobbed. Vance will kill me. The police will arrest me. I have nothing. I stood over him, looking at his shaking shoulders. Yes, I said softly. It looks like you've lost everything. Elena, snap out of it. Julian screamed, grabbing my shoulders and shaking me. His fingers dug into my flesh, sharp and painful. We've been hacked. Do you hear me? The money is gone. We have to leave the country tonight. I looked at his face, sweaty, pale, terrified. He looked like a stranger. Or maybe this was the real Julian, stripped of his expensive suits and arrogance. Let go of me, I said. We don't have time for your attitude. He yelled, pulling me toward the door. I have a pilot on standby in Teterboro. If we leave now? I planted my feet and yanked my arm back with a violence that shocked him. He stumbled, losing his grip. You aren't going anywhere, Julian, I said. My voice was cold, steady. It didn't sound like the voice of the wife he knew. He stopped, blinking at me in confusion. What, Elena, are you deaf? Vance is going to put a hit out on me. The feds will be here any minute. The feds are already on their way, I said, smoothing the sleeve of my red dress. But they aren't coming for me. What are you talking about? He demanded, his eyes darting around the room as if the walls were listening. I didn't lose the money, Julian, I told him, taking a slow step closer to him. I took it. The room went silent. The only sound was the distant murmur of the crowd outside and Julian's ragged breathing. He stared at me for a long time. Then a slow, ugly smile spread across his face. He started to laugh. It was a nervous, crazy sound. You? he wheezed, wiping sweat from his forehead. You took it? Don't make me laugh, Elena. You can't even balance the checkbook without asking me for help. You're stupid. You're weak. Am I? I reached into my clutch and pulled out the burner phone. I tapped the screen and held it up to his face. Look at the transfer authorization. Look at the routing number. He squinted at the screen. That's the Cayman account. Look at the beneficiary, I commanded. He read the name. Elena Rossi? He looked up, his jaw slack. Why are you using Dante's last name? Because he's my partner, I said. And I'm the majority shareholder of the shell company you created, Apex Logistics. It belongs to me now. I used your own stolen money to buy your debt. No, he whispered, shaking his head. That's impossible. My security, it's ironclad. Your security was Marcus, I said. I bought him with a pair of earrings. Your password was your birthday. I guessed it in one try. And your phone? I tossed the dummy phone onto the couch. I swapped it right in front of your face while you were busy yelling at me about spilled coffee. Julian looked at the dummy phone, then back at me. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His knees buckled. He sank to the floor, ruining his tuxedo pants on the dusty carpet. He wasn't kneeling in sorrow. He was kneeling in shock. You turned Sarah against me, he murmured, his eyes wide. The intern, the typo, all me, I said. Every single piece of your life falling apart, that was me. But why? He asked, his voice trembling like a child's. I gave you a life. I gave you this house. I gave you everything. You gave me a cage, I corrected him. You treated me like a doll. You thought you could cheat, steal, and destroy people, and I would just sit there and smile. I'm your husband, he pleaded, reaching a hand out toward my ankle. I stepped back out of his reach. Not anymore, I said. I own the house, Julian. I own the cars, I own the offshore accounts, and Dante? He owns your client list. He sent the entire database to the FBI 5 minutes ago. You ruined me, he choked out, tears finally spilling over. Why? Why did you do it? I looked down at him, the man who had made me feel small for years. Now he was the smallest thing in the room. Because you thought I was nothing, I replied. And nothing is more dangerous than a woman you refuse to see. Elena, please, he sobbed. Help me. I already helped you, I said, walking toward the door. I taught you a lesson. I unlocked the door and opened it. The flashing lights of police cruisers were reflecting off the hallway walls. Goodbye, Julian. Mrs. Blackwood stepped back. Detective Miller's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. I pressed my back against the wall, watching as 4 uniformed officers swarmed into the small dressing room. The hallway outside was a frenzy of shouting and static from police radios. Get your hands off me. Julian screamed, thrashing as 2 officers grabbed his arms. Do you know who I am? I'll have your badges for this. I'll sue the entire department. Julian Blackwood, Miller said, his voice calm and bored as he snapped the metal cuffs onto Julian's wrists. You are under arrest for wire fraud, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. Elena. Julian howled, twisting his neck to look at me. His face was streaked with tears and sweat, his tuxedo jacket torn at the shoulder. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them about the hack. It wasn't a hack, Julian, I said, my voice barely a whisper, but he heard it. It was justice. You ... you bitch. He spat, lunging toward me before the officers jerked him back. I made you. You're nothing without me. Get him out of here, Miller ordered. As they dragged him down the hallway, his screams echoed off the walls. Elena, Elena. I followed slowly, stepping over the shattered glass of the mirror he had broken. In the lobby of the venue, the guests were being held back by police tape. Cameras flashed blindly. I saw Sarah near the entrance. She wasn't looking so smug now. She was in handcuffs, mascara running down her face and black rivulets. He made me do it. She was shrieking at a female officer. I was just the assistant. I didn't know the money was stolen. I stopped in front of her. She looked up, her eyes wide with panic. Elena, she gasped. Elena, please tell them. I was just doing my job. Your job was to undermine me, I said softly. You wanted my life, Sarah. Now you have it. You're going to the same place he is. Move along, the officer said, pushing Sarah through the doors. I walked past them out into the cool night air. The street was blocked off with cruisers, their red and blue lights spinning, painting the world in violent colors. I walked to the edge of the terrace balcony, gripping the cold stone railing. "It's done," I turned. Dante was standing beside me, holding 2 cigarettes. He looked tired but satisfied. "Did they get the servers?" I asked. "FBI seized everything 10 minutes ago," Dante said, handing me a cigarette, though I didn't light it. "Julian's empire is dead. The evidence we planted on his drive is undeniable." "And the funds?" I asked, looking out at the city skyline. "Cleared," Dante said, a small grin touching his lips. $42 million successfully routed through the Cayman shell and deposited into the trust under your maiden name. It's clean, Elena, untraceable. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 5 years. I waited for the guilt. I waited to feel bad about destroying a man's life, but I felt nothing. Just a vast, quiet emptiness. "I'm a widow," I murmured. "Without the death, you're a free woman," Dante corrected. "And a very rich one." My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked at the screen. "Mother-in-law," I slid the answer button. "You ungrateful little witch." Eleanor's voice screeched so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I saw the news. "What have you done? My son is in handcuffs. I will destroy you." "Do you hear me? I will ruin you." "Hello, Eleanor," I said calmly. "You think you can get away with this?" She screamed. "I know you had something to do with it. You're too stupid to pull this off alone, but I'll find out. I'll sue you for every penny." "You can try," I said. "But you should check your own accounts first. I think Julian might have used your retirement fund as collateral for his bail." "What?" she gasped. "Goodbye, Eleanor," I said. I pressed the red button. Then I pressed block contact. I looked at Dante. He was watching me with respect. "You're terrifying," he said. "I had to be," I replied. I took a deep breath of the cold night air. It tasted like rain and exhaust fumes, but to me it tasted like oxygen. "I survived," I whispered to the city. "I actually survived. Good morning, Miss Rossi." Marcus stood up straight behind the marble reception desk. He wasn't wearing the cheap, ill-fitting polyester suit Julian used to force him to buy. He looked sharp in a fitted navy blazer. "I told you, Marcus," I smiled, pausing at the security gate. "Call me Elena. We aren't formal here." "Old habits," he grinned, pressing the buzzer to let me in. "You look different today." "Good different?" I asked. "Powerful different," he replied. "Like you own the place." "Which you do." "How is Lily?" I asked, leaning on the desk. His face lit up immediately. "She's back in school. She ran a mile yesterday in gym class. A whole mile. The doctor said her recovery is ahead of schedule." I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with money. "I'm glad, Marcus, really. We owe it all to you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "You earned it," I said, walking toward the elevators. "Keep the lobby safe, Marcus." The elevator doors opened on the top floor. It smelled of fresh coffee and productivity, not fear. Chloe was walking down the hall, holding a stack of files. She didn't look terrified anymore. She looked busy. "Oh, Elena." She stopped, hugging the files to her chest. "I didn't know you were coming in." "Just checking the feng shui," I joked. "How is AR treating you?" "It's great," she said breathlessly. "We just hired 3 new analysts. I made sure their contracts included overtime pay." "Real overtime pay." "Good," I nodded. "We don't build empires on free labor, Chloe. We build them on respect." "Yes, ma'am," she beamed. I pushed open the double glass doors to the main office. It used to be cold and gray. Now the blinds were open, flooding the room with light. Dante was sitting on the edge of the desk, Julian's old desk, scrolling through a tablet. "You're late," he said without looking up. "I'm the silent partner," I replied, tossing my purse onto the sofa. "I don't have a schedule." "I have dividends." Dante laughed, setting the tablet down. "Well, your dividends are up. We just secured the contract with Citibank. Legitimate security. No backdoors, no stealing data." "It sounds boring," I teased, walking around the desk. "It's safe," Dante corrected. "And it pays better than crime, surprisingly." "Move," I said, pointing to the chair. Dante stood up and bowed dramatically. "Your throne, madam?" I sat down. The leather was cool against my back. It used to feel like an electric chair when I sat here while Julian screamed at me. Now it just felt like a chair. "The courier dropped this off," Dante said. sliding a thick manila envelope across the mahogany surface. And this? He placed a smaller, dirty white envelope on top of it. I opened the big one first. The divorce decree, finalized. He got 20 years, Dante said softly, watching my face. Sentencing was an hour ago. No parole for at least 15. 20 years, I repeated, picking up a pen. I signed the last page. It's over. And the letter? Dante asked. It's from the county jail. I picked up the white envelope. It smelled like bleach and desperation. I ripped it open. Elena, please. I'm sorry, I was stressed. I love you. You can't leave me in here. I need money for an appeal. I made you who you are. What does it say? Dante asked. The same old lies, I said. He says he made me. Did he? I reached for the crystal ashtray on the desk. I took the heavy silver lighter that Julian used to prize so much. I flicked the flame. No, I said, holding the corner of the paper to the fire. He made a victim. I made myself. We watched the paper curl and blacken. The words I love you turned to ash. Are you okay? Dante asked gently. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city skyline sprawled out before me, glittering and tall. I'm not just okay, Dante, I said, seeing my reflection in the glass. I didn't see the scared girl with the pearls anymore. I saw a woman who had walked through fire and came out holding the torch. I'm in charge, I whispered to the city. And I'm never going back.